What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dr. Medic channel. I'm here in Kennesaw, Georgia, where I'm going to check out this beautiful Eurocopter EC130. Let's go check it out. Okay, so this particular base is up here at Kennesaw, and this is at McCollum Field. We're just about 35 minutes northwest of Atlanta at this beautiful airport. And these guys have the most amazing base. I swear this is the biggest, most spacious, luxurious looking helicopter EMS base I've ever been to. Now, AirLife is a community-based helicopter service with the operator of Airmethods. They do have 6 or 7 bases, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but this one right here, about 35-40 minutes northwest of Atlanta. And they've got this big, beautiful EC130 behind me. Now, when I was originally scheduled to come out here, the helicopter that is actually normally stationed at this base is 780 Gulf Sierra, but they've got a spare, which is 91 OU, and yes, I say OU because that OU was originally for OU Hospital in Oklahoma City. I used to fly on this very aircraft every now and then back in Oklahoma when I worked for Tulsa Life Flight and Metaflight. So I'm pretty familiar with the aircraft, so let's do a quick walk around and check it out. So you can see the helicopter here obviously has the standard Airmethods paint job, which always looks pretty cool. Up here in the front, we've got a pitot tube that's down at the bottom, obviously helps us with our airspeed indication. And then we do have a wire strike system that's up at the top, and then again, down at the bottom. So this is a 2001 model, which means it doesn't have the sliding door that the newer T2 models have. But the front door here just opens up with the latch. And then a smaller door opens with this latch, which it could then be tied down with this tie-down strap, which would then go over to this hook. So probably the first thing we want to look at is the seats. And like I said, even though I'm here at AirLife in Georgia, lift up that seat belt. What does that say? It's an original Metaflight sticker, which is super cool. Check out that stitch job right there. It's pretty awesome. So this helicopter does have these breakaway seats or crash resistant seats, which is very, very important. If you guys look at the video on the Metaflight crash that took place in Seminole, Oklahoma, I think in 2013. Now, there were obviously some serious injuries on that helicopter crash, but the fact that the injuries were limited to what they are can be highly attributed to these seats. Make sure you don't store anything underneath them, that's for sure. Okay, and the first thing that you see when you open up this helicopter doors is just look at how much room is in here. Normally air ambulances would really be all kind of a tight fit like that chair over there, but this middle one and especially this seat here, you can see how much room there is here. One of the great things about this EC130 is getting the patient in and out of the aircraft is made so much easier by the use of this sled. This sled can move forward, it can move sideways, and then it can rotate all the way out here. So when a patient is being moved up here by the hospital bed or by a stretcher from an ambulance, or maybe even carried by some first responders or the fire department or something like that, this bed would be all the way outside of the aircraft and they would be able to load the patient directly on there. Likewise, this actual sled system, the top part of this would actually pop off and can be loaded onto a stretcher so they can load the patient on the stretcher first and then load this sled in here. And then they can tilt the bed up and even lock it like this. Over here on the side, they do have a small sliding window that they can open up. They do have their door hatch here, and then they have several pockets here where they keep some extra equipment like some safety vests if they're on a highway, or maybe some spare gloves and stuff like that. This is their emergency jettison for the door. If they pull this door will be able to pop right off if they needed to in an emergency. But as I sit here in the aircraft, just look at how much room I have. Even in much bigger aircraft that are more powerful and maybe have a stretcher system in them and stuff like that, they still would not necessarily have this amount of room. And this isn't here for luxury, okay? This is here so that you can move, the paramedic or the nurse or whoever's sitting in this chair can move down the side of the patient and do a good assessment and do good patient care. Yes, it is kind of a perk that you can kind of stretch your legs out, but you can also, if you had to do CPR, which isn't really done that often in an air ambulance, but if you did have to do CPR, this is one of the few aircraft where you could really get down side by side to the patient and do chest compressions. But on this aircraft, which is really, really cool, even for an EC130, is they actually carry a Lucas device in the back, which is a mechanical CPR device. Maybe you've seen that, where it's got a big suction cup that kind of goes on the chest and you can set it. Looks a little violent sometimes, but provides pretty good chest compressions. I mean, the Lucas devices are great, but really in terms of research, go to the website, buy a shirt. But in terms of research, there's really no science to support that their use provides necessarily any better or any worse outcomes. But what we know that they do is the Lucas devices certainly provide a higher level of efficiency, because it's a whole set of hands that you don't have to worry about anymore. And it doesn't get fatigued. It always does great compressions, and it just frees up your hands, really. Up here you have some lights, and they are night vision goggle compatible. You have your AC and your heater controls here, and a really good vent system. So this aircraft does have really good air conditioning, and you can tell even with these top mounted windows and this big giant bubble, it can get extremely hot in here in the summertime. And so the fact that they have a really good air conditioning system is a really big plus. Now, in case you don't know, the EC130 was kind of made hand in hand with Eurocopter and the tourism industry to try and get a helicopter that was a single engine platform that could still offer these amazing views and be safe for the patient. So if you're wondering why the pilot's sitting over there on the left as opposed to over here on the right, the main reason is because you can fit, at least in a tour configuration, you can fit up to 3 people up front sitting to the right of the pilot. And the pilot's controls, especially the collective over there, would be on the pilot's left side like it always is, but it's away from these patients that would be over here. Not patients. It's away from these the tourists that would be sitting over here. And then you could have 3 or 4 people sitting in the back as well, with all of this amazing visibility looking out the aircraft. And again, you know, one of the biggest tour providers in the world is Hawaiian Blue Helicopters. Is it Hawaiian Blue or Hawaii Blue? I can't remember, but out in Hawaii, which is also owned by Airmethods. And so they've really got this helicopter figured out. Okay, and this stat pack right here is going to be most of their airway and medication equipment. You've got another bag here that just has some additional equipment that this particular crew likes to use. You've got your Zoll X-Series vent, which maybe we'll do a specific video on that. Let me know. I mean, you guys want to know how this thing works. It's super cool. It's only like $40,000 or $50,000 each. But it's pretty cool because obviously it takes all your vital signs, your blood pressure, your pulse, your respirations, your things like that, but it also tells you what cardiac rhythm somebody's in. It can do full 12 and 15 lead EKGs, but it also does transcutaneous pacing and is a defibrillator and does cardioversion, and it does a lot of good things. And without this, a lot of advanced level providers wouldn't be able to provide that advanced level of care, because a lot of that is through this machine. Okay, down here we've got some extra storage here as well. This is normally where their blood would go. They do carry blood at this particular service. There's a cooler inside, and so that would go here, and once they put the blood in there, it will stay at the proper temperature pretty much for the rest of the day. This is their sharps container, so all of their used needles and lancets and finger stick devices might go in there. We've got sapphire pumps all over the place. I don't see a Mini-Mate anywhere in sight. We've got our Hamilton T1 vent here, which is a super advanced vent. They do have a Revell inside that they use as well, but again, these Hamiltons can do some advanced pressure stuff. We've got some extra storage in the back, which would be lots of IV materials and medication administration stuff like syringes, needles, and gauze and stuff like that. Back here on the back, on this back wall, we've got some AC power. We've also got some 12-volt power, and then we've got our oxygen coming in, as well as a gauge and an interior temperature monitor. There's a medical air there, but nobody uses that, but it's there nonetheless. These are radio controllers that they would plug their helmet into, so their helmets will have a headset built into it, which is pretty neat, so that they can talk to the patient, talk to the pilot, and then with their comm system up here, they could also be able to talk to a physician. They could talk to the receiving or the sending hospital, either through the radio or through a sat phone. Okay, back here in this side compartment, they've got some cleaning products. They might have to clean up a scene or clean up their aircraft. They have some personal protective equipment, like if they have to wear some Tyvek suits, if COVID comes back around and starts screwing the world up. This is one big giant mega mover, which is kind of a big sheet that they can put underneath a patient, and then 4 or 5 people can hold these handles and then help carry the patient to the aircraft in case there wasn't a stretcher available or a hospital bed. This net would normally be up, which is very important because if this door pops open, it would prevent a couple of things from falling out and possibly getting into the tail rotor back there. They also normally keep some of their vent material sitting in this area right here. Here's where we have a step to help for inspection, another step to help for inspection so that the pilot can climb up here and inspect either the filter or the particle separator or the engine or something like that. Also has a Tannis system that they can plug in that will heat up the oil to try to preheat certain parts of the engine if the temperature drops below like 40 degrees or gets too cold. This is a 28 volt system, and so they can plug in here to plug into their battery. Okay, this is a single engine aircraft, and up here is where you have your turbo mecha Ariel 2B1 engine, puts out 700 some horsepower, super reliable engine, super powerful engine. The new upgraded T2 models I think have closer to 970 horsepower on the turbo mecha Ariel 2D engine, but this is a perfectly capable engine and very, very safe and very, very reliable. They've even got their very own fuel truck set now here, which is super cool. Now, if you watch that video on that EC135 up in New York, you can see they have the same handles that the EC135 does, which just helps to actually move the aircraft up and down to put the trolley system on if you're going to be manually pulling this in and out of the hangar. And obviously, one of the features that distinguishes this aircraft from so many other helicopters is this fenestron tail. Very similar to what's on the EC135 or even the new H145s, where the tail rotor is kind of built into the tail here. But one thing that's interesting that, if you've never actually seen one of these up close, is that you can tell that these blades are unevenly spaced out. And the reason that they do that, I'm not going to pretend to know the physics or the math behind it, but the reason that they do that is that uneven spacing helps to counterbalance certain sound waves to really make this a lot quieter than a regular tail rotor. And so this is one of the quietest single engine helicopters that has ever existed. Okay, and back here is just some extra storage. You can see in the back there, that black bag is their Lucas device. And I was told that that cord right there might be connected to one of those crazy mini-mates, but I'm not gonna look at that because that's gonna give me PTSD. Okay, here on the other side of the aircraft, they have more storage, which is so cool that they have liquid oxygen. Remember, liquid oxygen is stored obviously as a liquid, but it's done that way because the temperature is so low. It's very, very cold, and the colder it is, the more compressed it's going to be, and it's going to be down in a liquid format. This is as opposed to the D-tank oxygen cylinder, which is over on the other side of the aircraft behind where I was sitting, where that oxygen is actually stored under increased pressure. A couple more storage devices here, and then a fan for some ventilation. Okay, and so this is the sliding door on the other side. Like I said, that T2 model has this same sliding door, but over on the other side. And then a whole bunch of storage right here for smaller items that they might need while taking care of the patient. So you can certainly see that sitting over on this side, it is a little bit tighter, but it's certainly doable, especially if you're doing charting or something like that over here, which you're not supposed to do electronically in an aircraft. But nonetheless, if you're sitting over here doing something else, that's okay. But if I scoot over to this chair, I actually have a lot more room. I can kind of stretch one of my legs out a little bit and still work on the monitor, work on the patient, or even work back here on the vent. Okay, so like I said, this was made for the tourist industry, and that's why that pilot is usually sitting over on the left on this aircraft. And it's mostly because this collective right here is safely out of the way of any tourists or anybody who might actually accidentally mess with it or something like that. And even for a backup helicopter, it still had an amazing avionics package with the twin screen Garmin G500 there, the digital display with the VEMD, and then 2 Garmin GNS 430s. And the primary helicopter that I do fly in does have a Helisas 2-axis helicopter autopilot, which basically just controls everything with a cyclic. There's not going to be any pedal movements or collective in that, but still an amazing safety feature to have. And then if you look out right here, you can't see it in this video, but exactly 3 miles away is roughly a 1,000-foot mountain called Kennesaw Mountain, which, even though this airport does have a weather reporting station, sure makes it easy that you can literally look outside your base and look for a 1,000-foot obstruction that is almost exactly 3 miles away. And once again, just an amazing machine. And the best part about this entire base is their custom-made AirLife number 5 sign. And just one thing that you can tell with this service, just walking around their base, is just that there's a lot of history here. The service has kind of changed some names over the years, but the culture has kind of stayed the same, you know, over the last 25, 30 years, kind of changing names here and there. But you can just tell that the folks that work here take a lot of pride in what they do. They care, they're extremely qualified, and super, super professional. And it was a pleasure to stop by and check out their cool digs. All right, guys, once again, I was super stoked to be able to come out and check out this EC130, and I was even more stoked to find out that it was an aircraft that I used to fly on back home years ago. This crew, the company, they were all very, very accommodating. They were very, very nice and very patient, walking around filming the aircraft and answering all my questions. It's definitely a crew that I would fly with, definitely a pilot that I would fly with, and I'm just very, very grateful for their time. And if you have a helicopter that you want me to come check out, please let me know in the comments below or send me an email. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode.